Do you remember the cultural hole in the West in the early 2010s? Everywhere you looked, there were zombies. The Walking Dead, Left 4 Dead, anything written by Max Brooks. The zombie trend was inescapable. And when trends happen, trends get unoriginal fast. Everyone wanted a piece of the zombie pie, but there was not enough dessert to feed everyone at this dinner party. It wasn't until you got outside the Western cultural bubble that things really got shaken up. In the East, there was a lot less saturation in the zombie subgenre, so lots of stuff were able to do its own thing. Gakuo Karashi was a post-apocalyptic moe, High School of the Dead was a fun, over-the-top ecchi themed show, and in 2009, the world of manga brought us I Am a Hero by Kengo Hanazawa, who at the time was best known for Boys on the Run. Now there's something I want to admit right off the bat with this video. I don't read seinen much. Yeah, I know, Berserk's great, Vinland Saga's great, Inio Asano has direct control over the mental health of millions, but relatively speaking, I am not experienced in this landscape. I read manga for babies. My stuffed animal collection is coming along very nicely, and Bob the Builder Fix-It fun is still snug within my Game Boy Color. So bear with me here if any of my critiques and comparisons seem, I don't know, uninitiated. I Am a Hero follows Hideo Suzuki, a lonely 35-year-old delusional mangaka who is stuck in a low-paying assistant job, a failing relationship, he hallucinates terrifying creatures all the time, and he's so miserable he doesn't even feel like he owns his own life story. He's so miserable he unintentionally daydreams scenarios where people are more interested in the things he has to say. He's a wreck. However, after all of these problems nearly break him, the world begins to collapse, and stop me if you've heard this one before, a virus begins to spread, infecting bite victims, turning them into superhuman mutants whose primary function is to devour other humans. Now, I know you may think I just summarized the first pilot chapter, you know, the very beginning. That's wrong. Okay then, the first 3 maybe? No. In I Am a Hero, the world doesn't begin to end until the end of Volume 1. This is what the series is most well known for, its slow burn prologue. Yeah, the series drops hints of where it's going, but it isn't until the end of the first volume where the collapse of society begins. This is absolutely unheard of in manga. Most manga get to the meat of things quickly. They don't like to make the audience wait around for things to happen. But think about it. The slow opening gives the audience an incredibly deep look into Hideo's mundane life, his failing career, love life, and his unstable mental condition. Because of all this, once the world begins to end in Volume 2, the impact is heightened immensely. This isn't The Walking Dead, which cut to the world ending in page 3. You get to really know this man's world, and once it begins to crash down, it's insanely powerful. Now let's talk about the zombies, the ZQN as they're called. While these could be called zombies, they're far from your typical slow-walking, weak, rotting corpses. In I Am a Hero, the ZQN are powerful, agile beasts, and all of them pose a serious threat to any character on the page, including Hideo, who's one of the only characters who wields a weapon that he owned for sport before the end of the world. The danger they present is ever-present, and characters are sure to lose at close ranges, and long-range weapons present the threat of attracting more ZQN. This isn't a series where zombies stop being a threat to characters. Their danger is always felt. Not to mention how grotesquely drawn they are. Deformities, torn body parts, it's all really gross, and a lot of it's hard to look at. Many of them have unique designs too, with a lot of the early series ones having implied backstories through mindless dialogues in their actions. Later on in the series, they become misshapen and changed to resemble monsters and aliens rather than humans, and after this, they become even more unique and dangerous. It keeps the reader and the characters on their toes with new monsters to look at rather than mindless hordes of the undead. In addition to all of this, while many properties are content with leaving how their monsters work largely up in the air, I Am a Hero consistently introduces new discoveries about the ZQN and expands on how they function and what they could be. The mystery is interesting to follow, and it gives enough information to make conclusions without directly spelling out everything. None of this detracts from the characters either. Starting with Hideo, while Hanazawa himself said that he's meant to be less of a protagonist and more of an average mob character, he has personality and is enjoyable to follow. Sometimes he's embarrassing and cringy, and his uselessness is obvious, but that's his main struggle, justifying his own existence. While he's a powerful character for wielding a shotgun, without it he wouldn't be any better than the weak mob characters. There are moments in the series where he says he has to be the only one to use a shotgun because it's against the law for someone without a license to use it. But I was always under the impression that Hideo used his law-abiding morals to justify keeping his own means of staying useful. Hideo is interesting to follow because you get to watch him grow stronger and prove his worth in order to justify his own continued survival. The littlest wins are big for him, since he continues to grow past the person who he was, because in the beginning it seemed like he was never destined to do anything worthwhile. Most characters are written with just as much care as well. Hiromi struggles with insecurities and what people think about her, and her insecurity is so strong that little things like minor jokes about her appearance get her visibly angry, and it gets so bad that later on in the series it pushes her to kill people. It's her defining flaw, and later on she's put into a position where all of her insecurities are out in the open and she shatters under all of it. I could go in depth about a lot of the characters in the series, but I'll leave it at this. There aren't many main characters that leave you unsatisfied and wondering. Motivations and morals are clear, and they're all believable. The characters are great. Now, I know I just said the monsters and the characters are believable, and I stand by that, but there's a point to be made about the tone throughout the series, and it's hard to describe, but there are points in the series where the stakes and the characters become a bit cartoonish. There's a story arc where the characters decide they want to go to a bathhouse. Okay, fine, they're disgusting. That's fine, it's a good character motivation. But during the story arc, the ZQN, which I previously mentioned being incredibly threatening, just stop being that way. There's a moment in this arc where the two main girls go off to start their bath while Hideo is still fighting hundreds of zombies right outside their door. Each time I read this part of the story, I feel like I have to just shut my brain off for it. It's incredibly nonsensical. It's really off-putting. There are a couple parts of the stories where things get like this, either cartoonishly lowering the ZQN threat for some reason, or just weirdly written scenes, but these scenes are few and far between, but I wouldn't have felt right not mentioning these odd hiccups. Alright, let's talk visuals now. And boy, the series gets a lot right here. Characters are drawn with a realist look, and Hanazawa isn't afraid to make characters ugly. Hell, I would even go as far to say that none of the cast are particularly good looking at all. But it helps to create a sense of realism that most manga don't strive for. It really reminds me of Inio Asano's characters, but with the ugly pushed even further. Ignoring a couple stiff poses, the characters look great. Now for the settings, most of the backgrounds are digitized grayscale images, but they get the job done, and with characters always on the move, you aren't going to be looking at the same stuff for long. One complaint I do have about the art is that it's not uncommon to see panels just get reused. Most of the time it pops up, it's incredibly noticeable, and if you read it, you'll understand what I mean. It becomes incredibly excessive to the point where panels from previous chapters get reused in later ones, as seen here, and you'll see panels that are used page after page. It's incredibly extensive, and it's something that's really hard not to be bothered by. Not to mention that most of the volume covers are reused art from within the manga. I would have loved to see original art be made specifically for the tankobon covers instead. Okay, I put it off for long enough. Let's talk about the ending, which is going to be really spoiler heavy, so skip here if you don't want to hear it. I don't think I've encountered a single manga with a more harsh reaction to a conclusion ever. Maybe Erased, but even then, I know people who still like that ending. Nowhere in the discussion about this series have I seen someone who liked how this series ended, and I'm here to rock the boat a bit. I don't think the ending's bad. For those who are sticking around in spoilers and don't know, here's a very short version. In the middle of a conflict between the Asada and Kurusu groups, Hiromi becomes a queen bee to the ZQN collective, and Hideo is forced to kill her. In the end, a small collection of both groups escapes using the Asada's helicopter and begin a new civilization on a deserted island, all while Hideo kills Hiromi, leaving the ZQN mass to essentially stop in its tracks and die. In the end, Hideo exists on his own, creating his own civilization and making a living off his own work. The general consensus on why this ending is considered bad is because it's anticlimactic, leaves a lot of questions unanswered, and isn't a satisfying ending for Hideo. I think these arguments are f***ing stupid. Let's dive in. I went into the manga knowing about the controversial ending, and I wasn't looking forward to it. But after reaching the conclusion, I was confused. The final arc was climactic, forcing every group into a deadly battle with tons of characters falling one after the other. I saw many people fall into the mindset of, I didn't even know this was the climax. Okay, yeah, if you're reading it weekly and just expect the series to go on forever, sure, but Many characters are dropping like flies, characters keep implying that this is the end of the road, and tons of mysteries about the ZQN are coming to light. So unless you're reading this weekly, come on, it's the 20th volume, expect things to start wrapping up. But what about all the unanswered questions we have? Nothing was explained. I'm sorry, did we read the same story? We got chapters upon chapters of exposition dumps on the ZQNs and their possible reasons for being. Sure, it's characters making inferences and none of it is set in stone, but come on, this is a sign-in, this is an adult manga, put on your big boy pants and make some assumptions. Come to conclusions based on your own observations. The series gives you enough to create your own general idea of what it's all supposed to mean, and even if you can't create an entirely clear picture, fans are left to discuss on what these things could mean. I know I'm a shonen baby, and I know I'm new to the seinen landscape, but isn't the point of reading a more mature series like this to be able to come to your own conclusions and not be spoon-fed at everything? I think so. Okay, last one. The ending being weak for Hideo's character. Once again, are you paying attention? Hideo has spent the entire series trying to justify himself, having to justify himself being in the crowd and not being useless for the people in his life. Even after the world ends, Hideo has to face people who berate him for being useless. He tells himself that he's a hero and lies to himself that he does stand out, but in the end, I feel that isn't what Hideo actually wants. Given the chance, wouldn't it be better if he justified survival for his own right, if he was his own hero? In the end, he's left in the world by himself, with the ending implying that he killed the ZQN hive mind entirely. Sure, Hideo isn't praised for his accomplishments and there's no one to support him in the end, but that wouldn't have been an ending fit for Hideo. In the end, he learns to live for himself and justifies his own existence. I couldn't fathom the hate for this ending. Sure, it's not incredible, there's a lot left open, like, man, I wonder what happened to Boat Guy, and sure, you can say the slow ending kinda makes you think it'll continue, but doesn't a series that started slow deserve to end slow? The storytelling structure doesn't end here, it ends here. Either way, so many people writing off 20 books of incredible manga just because they couldn't wrap their heads around the ending is really stupid, and it's something that bothers me because of how common it is. Now, stepping away from the series for a second, I'd like to quickly talk about the physical release of the series that we got in the States. In Japan, the series was released over the course of 22 tankobon volumes. However, in America, Dark Horse Comics released the series in 11 omnibus volumes, with each covering 2 volumes worth of content, retailing around $20. These books are small, the binding is strong, the printing's well done, and each of the volumes offers a pretty extensive list of translator's notes, which, while not uncommon, is still great to see. My only real complaint is with the 2-page spreads. It's really difficult and hard to see the middle of the pages, and in one instance I permanently damaged one of my books in order to see the art. However, this is something that tankobons have always never been able to really get right, so it's not really a problem with these books, but I did think I should mention it. All of this is not to mention that these things can be found for almost 60% off their original $20 asking price. These books are a great value and present great quality. In 2015, I'm a Hero received a film adaptation directed by Shinsuke Sato, who's done a fair amount of adaptation films already, and for this film, he got everything mostly right. The movie adapts the first 8 volumes of the manga and adapts the content pretty well, with some omissions. Hideo's monstrous hallucinations are removed, and Hideo and Hiromi first meet in a taxi since the chapters in Aokigahara aren't adapted at all. I also think Yo Izumi as Hideo is really spot on, and he really stole the show as the character. None of this is to say it's an amazing zombie movie. I think the 2-hour runtime is really long, and the slow opening chapters are cut down to just a mere 15 minutes. But for fans of the manga and people who just want a taste of I'm a Hero, I think the film does a solid job. Throughout its run, I'm a Hero also received multiple spin-off manga that featured new protagonists and stories. I'm a Hero in Osaka, I'm a Hero in Ibaraki, I'm a Hero in Nagasaki, and the Koshiki comic anthology. None of these stories are currently available in the West, so I've only been able to read one of them, which was I'm a Hero in Osaka, but we recently got the final volume of the series in the West, so it wouldn't surprise me if we got these spin-offs translated soon enough. So in the end, I'm a Hero set itself apart from other zombie media by presenting relatable, grounded characters, unique and interesting zombies with a rich, mysterious origin, rounded out with incredibly detailed artwork. If anything I talked about here interests you, you should definitely give this series a shot. Once again, the books are super cheap, and the entire series doesn't take up much room on a shelf. Don't let the babies who want to be spoon-fed everything tell you that the ending is bad, because not giving the entire series a fair shake just for the ending does a disservice to the care Hanazawa presented here. Even if you hate the ending, the series we got handed here was very good, and was groundbreaking for zombies when you consider how absolutely dull zombies became later down the line. And as someone who once loved that terrible, terrible cultural pit. The fact that years later I was able to dig something original and interesting out of that pit made me really happy. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end. This was my first manga review, so I hope you enjoyed it. I'm hoping to make more in the future because this one was really fun to make. It was a great distraction these last couple weeks. If you want to support more of my creative endeavors, go check out my webcomic, Devil's Moon. I'm finishing up Chapter 4 now, and I'm hoping to have it out on August 2nd. Thanks again for watching.